Yes. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Transportation Committee meeting of Wednesday, February 27th. I'm Councilman Mike Bonham, the chair, joined by my colleague Paul Koretz of the 5th District. I believe Councilmember Martinez from the 6th District will be with us shortly. We are going to start. I know a lot of folks are here for item number 6. We'll get to that near the beginning of the meeting. We have a number of people who have filled out cards on every single item on the agenda, so we're going to take those multiple public comment speakers first, and they will do all of their stuff up front of the meeting, and then the rest of the meeting will proceed through the order of business. I do want to issue a warning to those of you who have not been here before and have not experienced the phenomenon at City Council and at City Council committees, that there are, on a regular basis, speakers who come to our council and our committees and avail themselves of their First Amendment rights to engage in what is essentially hate speech. There will be people who are going to come up in the next few minutes who very well could use racist, homophobic, or anti-Semitic language. And I'm not joking, including the N-word. So I actually have earplugs over on the side that you may want because it will get graphic. With that, we're going to take items 1 through 4 on consent, but there are public comment cards on that. So I will call the multiple public comment cards. Michelle Autry, Wayne from Encino, and Herman. It's okay. And for the record, we're joined by Councilmember Martinez. Good afternoon, Ms. Autry. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. So the way this will work for all the multiple speakers is 2 minutes for the items on the agenda, and then you'll get an additional minute for your general public comment for matters under the jurisdiction of the Transportation Committee.
For each, yeah, I'm fine, except for I just found out about Mr. John Walsh, so I'd like to give a few moments of silence in honor of his memory. Because he was a very vocal member of our community, and I think this is what a democracy is. This is not an oligarchy, it is not a plutocracy, and every citizen deserves the right to express themselves, and so few citizens and constituents do. Obviously, because we're targeted as terrorists, but I'm so glad that some of us still find the wherewithal and the strength and the conviction to make use and to make this the democracy that it should be, and it is in writing, but it's still very racist, very sexist, very oppressive, a republic, and in maintenance of the status quo, which is hidden. Per Michelle Alexander's book, this is not a colorblind society. So that being said, as a member of Los Angeles Community Action Network, we've been lobbying for parity on Skid Row. We've been lobbying for a Skid Row that is a normal. It's a community. So we need bicycle lanes. That is pertinent. I ride a bicycle quite often, and for some reason, you all cannot provide or create bicycle lanes in Skid Row, which is what I think Los Angeles, and then to the east to Central Alameda, 52-block radius. So, of course, I suppose, you find funding for, for the paramilitary and arming the paramilitary police, but why can't you find them monies just to create that parity so that when we are in Skid Row, then we have the protection of having the bicycle lane with the signage so that there are fewer people that are run over by trucks, because that has been, I think, an increase.
Thank you very much.
And I think it's because there's a lack of the parity in the bicycle lane. So we need bicycle lanes in Skid Row.
Thank you, Ms. Autry. Mr. Spindler. You have 2 minutes for the items that are on today's agenda, and then 1 minute for general public comment on transportation-related matters.
Yes, that's good. So we have number one, the 15th District, the silver-tongued cop Joe Blow Buscaino. Fuck him. We don't want number one. He's a dirty, filthy cop. And a snitch? No, 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 no. Number two, well, Mr. Spindler disagrees, but me, the puppet, I support number two. You do? Yes, because we need the undesirables to get the fuck out of Hollywood. We need more money. Number three, the mayor safe driving contest. Well, the mayor actually hit somebody a couple of years ago in his vehicle, so he supports running over people. We support saving people's lives. And then we have number six, the Great Street Failure, yes. The Venice Boulevard Failure Street Project, sponsored by drug addict Mike Bonin and the mayor and everybody else who has psychological problems with traffic flow. Traffic flow is by car and bus. None of us use bikes in the West Valley. We drive electric cars. Beep, beep. Yes. So we don't want it. We want to get rid of it, tear everything up, widen the lanes, and create more lanes of traffic. Then we can have bike lanes after we start moving the fucking traffic. Because we want to go from the ghetto through West Hollywood out to the beach so that we can go to the beach and pick up our drugs and then drive them back to Venice and sell them to Mike Bonin to keep him happy. As you see today, he looks unhappy because we can't move in the traffic with the dope.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. You now have 1 minute for general public comment, which I'll remind you is restricted to matters before this committee, which would be transportation-related matters.
Yes, so again, we have attempted to address a big problem on our public subway, the Expo line. White people going east to downtown have been called transportation niggers again and again and again. Now, why is that? That's not fair. Just because a white person born of privilege, that's what Nuri calls it, white privilege. Paul Koretz calls it the Jewish privilege. Mike Bonin, of course, is ashamed to be white. So that's why when we take the subway back out of the ghetto, we go back to Santa Monica. That's right, named after Monica Rodriguez, that lovely councilwoman, yes. So we want to make sure that we stop calling these people TNs. Let's all be equal. Let's provide free parking at the garage. Finally, fuck Mike Bonin, sober up, and get a life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Mr. Herman, you have 2 minutes for the 8 items that are on our agenda today.
So, as many of you know about dumb cops, or I should say Buscaino CD15, in regards to 22 feet and 7 inches, likely the height of his penis, is demanding that people be displaced not to live off of Normandy because they're homeless. Why is that? Because between Carson Street and Torrance, white supremacist motherfuckers don't want you to live in your car or your mobile home or your van. Fuck Joe Buscaino and fuck the police. Then on item 2, relative prohibiting of parking, fuck your parking rules. Then on item 3, under CEQA, fuck Vision Zero. No one wants to be on a scooter nowadays. You can't regulate scooters, and that's why you dumb fucks are in the news, because you're being told you need to come up with an issue regarding scooters and bicycles on the fucking pedestrian walkways, assholes. Then on item 4, transportation niggers regarding niggers in CD5 and CD11. who say that Westminster motherfuckers like me can't have a speedway. Fuck y'all. Then, the best of all, violation of Charter Rule 9. Why Bonin, the drug addict, is saying to people on Venice Boulevard over the Great Street project that many of you are going to hear protest against, why the motherfucker violates the Brown Act and doesn't allow you, for the purpose of the Brown Act, to facilitate public participation.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. You now have 1 minute for general public comment for matters under the jurisdiction of this committee.
As delivered in a case between the city and the public under the city clerk bitch, it is to assert that the city had violated the Brown Act by preventing people from speaking, such as on item number 6. The purpose of the Brown Act is to facilitate public participation in fucking local government and decisions and to curb misuse of democratic process by secret legislation. So we don't want your fucking judges to deliberate with that fucking drug addict up there about Venice Beach. If the fucking drug addict, gay motherfucker there, stupid chongo motherfucker there can't make good decisions on our part in Venice Beach, who the fuck is he? Look at that stupid face. Stupid, bald, faggot motherfucker, you anti-Semitic bitch.
And your time is up. Thank you very much, Mr. Herman. Mr. Previn. Mr. Previn? Yes, you had cards on a number of items. So you have 2 minutes for the items on today's agenda, followed by 1 minute for general public comment.
Okay. It's Eric Previn from Studio City in CD2. And yes, I did review your agenda, and I've noticed that once again in CD13, which is Mitchell O'Farrell's district, we are restricting parking. Now, nobody has done a more robust job than Mr. O'Farrell of restricting parking around Hollywood. I took note that the Academy Awards last week had an enormous closure for a virtual week, which the people endured and had to get around. It was very difficult. But here we're talking about under ordinary circumstances in the middle of the night. This is yet another of the litigations to try to, not litigations, but ordinances to try to block parking of larger vehicles overnight. Now, that's an admirable goal if you have people who are doing bad things, but remember that we are all lined up behind finding some place for people to be. And since we're doing a lousy job of it, to continue to roll out these schemes to limit where people can go is extremely onerous, I would say. Now, Vision Zero, which I think everybody appreciates the spirit of, certainly, and I have participated in the bikeway discussions about our neighborhood near Studio City, where there's little areas where we have to make connections, viable connections for that to work, that big plan, is interesting. And I'm glad that you've got several items. I think it's item number 7 where you're looking specifically at the safe bicycle ideas there. The problem is that it refers to 2 documents, a budget document where no number is referenced, and then a report published last night or something that doesn't have a dollar number either. So that was, if I recall correctly, one of the big sticking points. So I know there's going to be a report, but by being in the multi-section, I don't get to comment on their reports. Another reason why the multi-section, which has been challenged legally, I guess, is being opposed. Finally, we have 2 streets in Studio City that are Vision Zero sensitive, meaning we are increasing the speed limit because you want to ticket people by 5 miles. I know you've been against that, but it's bad. It is very bad. So I don't want people.
Thank you, Mr. Previn. You have a minute for general public comment, if you'd like.
So appreciate that. I don't want to harp on about transparency, but that's what I do. I'm a journalist, and when I hear comments like there's a hate speech, I don't support hate speech, as you know, but when you identify the speakers who are going to address multiple items as about to engage in hate speech, it puts me personally in a very hot seat where I am constantly having to defend against the idea that I don't deliver that kind of thing. What I do deliver is appellate court opinions. As Martinez must know by now, the 2nd Division, I think it's called, 2nd Appellate District, made a finding that at special meetings, when you call them real fast to not fake out, but it could have that effect of people, you have to take comments on those items that are on the agenda. It was a resounding ruling, not in my favor, but in the favor of the public, for regular people who get, inconvenienced all over the place. And in final comment, as I'm running out of time, I just want to urge you to ask Monica Rodriguez not to hold the Public Safety Committee meeting at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. That is a best practice for fleecing the public of participation. And she's got items on the agenda that are not.
Thank you very much, Mr. Previn.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. We have one other general public comment. Mr. Miro, as you filled out a card for general public comment as well, please come on up.
So do I do the general public comment or the
General public
agenda
comment
item
here.
first?
You can do the general public comment here.
And I also did one for, it was two separate,
Yeah, okay, you can do both of those now if you'd like.
it's up to you.
Feel free, so you can get a minute for each.
So do I take the 2-minute one first? Okay.
It's 1 minute for item 6 and then 1 minute for general public comment. They had filled out cards for all 8 items, which is
I
why.
can get through it in 2 minutes. So first, the general public comment. The Brown Act is supposed to allow people to speak at the neighborhood, or excuse me, at the council meeting, which yesterday I learned that doesn't necessarily happen anymore because you've taken it up in committee. The problem with the current system is neighborhood councils have to download and read through dozens of reports that they have to subscribe to and read every single item to see if the item actually falls within their neighborhood council. That's an enormous amount of work, and all of the neighborhood councils are volunteers. And to get through that amount of documentation is absolutely impossible. So you're not getting the public feedback that charter reform required, and that Section 907 says you're supposed to be providing us that information. We're not supposed to be coming to you for that information. In other words, we're not supposed to have to subscribe to a list and then find the information, but you're supposed to be telling us what's happening in our neighborhood council region. So that's it for my public comment. The road diet is something that I'm concerned about. It's the emergency route for everybody in Venice. And we've taken this up at the Venice Neighborhood Council, and this is an issue. We don't have an exit route anymore. It's restricted, and that's a problem. And they're now going to be doing a lot of construction on Venice Boulevard, and that's going to take out a lane also for several years, it sounds like. In addition to that, the Venice Neighborhood Council has agreed to creating a better bus transportation solution, we hope, with having an express bus that rather than running a 733, which is an articulating bus down Main Street, which is one lane, let's put it on Lincoln and take out the parking lane during commuter hours. Well, that bus then turns and goes down Venice Boulevard. To get people to ride that bus, it has to be faster than sitting in traffic. And the current road diet does not allow for a high-speed rapid transit bus, one of the articulating style buses. It's only 2 lanes. We can't take out the parking lane because it's in the middle of the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For anybody who actually is interested in redesign of the bus system, Metro is engaged in a next-gen bus study to reconsider where all the routes go, and there'll be a public meeting on that Tuesday night on the west side, some around the region, but Tuesday night on the west side at 5 p.m. at 11338 Santa Monica Boulevard. Next Tuesday. I can send you the info, Jim. All right, colleagues, we will now get to the agenda. My recommendation would be to move items 1, 2, 3, and 4 on consent with a technical correction from the CLA on number 1 through 4. And you have a technical correction on 4?
Yeah, there's just a small typo in recommendation number 2 on item number 4, so recommend to approve that as amended.
Okay. So without objection, that is the direction of the committee. Next, we will go to item number 6, which most of the audience is here for.
Item number 6 is DOT report relative to a CEQA appeal by Westside Los Angeles Neighbors Network Incorporated of LADOT's Venice Boulevard Great Streets project, finalized project, and additional improvements and categorical exemption from CEQA requirements pursuant to CEQA sections 15301 and 15304.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, just let me introduce the item a bit, and then we'll open up the hearing. This item is a public hearing for an appeal of the CEQA exemption of the Great Streets project on Venice Boulevard in Mar Vista in CD11. Let me just give you a little background on the project and what it's meant for Mar Vista. As you know, in 2014, Mayor Garcetti designated 15 streets throughout the city as great streets, and in my district, the section, or Venice Boulevard, was selected. And through extensive outreach in 2015, and since then, the Great Streets Initiative staff, my office, various city departments worked with the community council and engaged the public to develop a shared vision for Venice Boulevard that matched the Great Streets objectives of increasing economic activity, improving access and mobility, enhancing neighborhood character, improving environmental resilience and sustainability, and creating safer and more secure communities. The primary feedback we heard during this process is that Venice Boulevard wasn't working well for the community. As a former state highway, it was too fast, too loud, and felt too unsafe for residents who wanted to access all the businesses that line the street. The community also felt strongly they wanted more of a sense of place in what they considered to be their neighborhoods downtown. They wanted a Mar Vista Main Street. The project was carefully designed with this input in mind, and it was vetted with the community. The key design principle was to bring together the two sides of the very wide street by reducing the width and by adding new places to cross the street. The protected bike lane adds to the sense of place by keeping moving traffic farther away from what in some places are relatively narrow sidewalks. There were workshops held at local businesses on the corridor that showed what the reconfigured street would look like. The Mar Vista Chamber of Commerce worked with other groups to organize a one-day pop-up event when the new configuration was demonstrated for the community to see. In 2017, LADOT began construction of the new boulevard design. They started with the new signalized mid-block crosswalks and a left turn signal, and finished with the protected bike lane in May of 2017. During the pilot period and since, we've also worked with local artists to install murals. We've added new transit shelters and lighting. We've added trash cans and bike racks. Most recently, we installed the first ever pavement mural in the intersection of Grandview and Pacific, right nearby. All of these improvements came from the vision that the community developed for what they wanted Venice Boulevard to look like. After installation of the new configuration, we held 1-month, 3-month, and 6-month open houses to hear from the community how the pilot was going and to hear suggestions on how to refine it. LADOT then made adjustments to make the corridor work even better. They improved the design of several right turns. They added green paint at areas where cars would cross the bike lane. And they added a second left turn lane at Centinela where most of the initial traffic delay was occurring. After the 1-year pilot period ended, LADOT began analyzing the results as compared to the baseline data collected before the project. The final report and a 130-page technical appendix with all the raw data used in the evaluation is available on the project website, which is www.venice-boulevard-marvista.org, Boulevard BLVD. What they concluded was, one, that Venice Boulevard is safe. There have been no serious or fatal collisions since the reconfiguration, and overall collisions are trending in the right direction where improvements were made. 2, the new Venice Boulevard is efficient. It can carry the traffic it needs to while still making space for bikes and scooters and other ways of getting around. 3, the new Venice Boulevard is good for business. Revenue for businesses physically located along the corridor increased by $3 million year over year. There has been some turnover for businesses along the boulevard, which is typical throughout the city of Los Angeles, but data showed an unprecedented spike in rents and record low vacancy rates. These are indications of a strong business environment, as evidenced by nearly 24 new businesses which have opened since the start of the project. 4, people like the new Venice Boulevard. I know it may not sound like it from some of the testimony we're going to hear, but when you go out and interview random people on the street, people like what this project has done for Mar Vista. People report feeling safer and more comfortable, and they say that Mar Vista is now more of a destination with a clear identity. What's more, the intensity of the positive feelings about the neighborhood increased dramatically compared to the pre-project surveys. Based on these findings, the general manager, Selita Reynolds, determined that the pilot project should become permanent, and in support of this determination, found this decision was exempt from CEQA. That exemption is what is being appealed today. With that, I would like to call up the appellant and or their representative to make their arguments. And after the appellant makes that argument, I will then go to public comment, and then staff can reply at all. So the appellant gets 5 minutes to make their case.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Hall. I'm a land use and environmental attorney with Channel Law Group. I'm here today on behalf of Appellant Westside Los Angeles Neighbors Network. I just want to first start off by making sure that we understand that this is not an argument about the positive impacts associated with the project. No one's going to get up here and say that there haven't been certain positive impacts. The question that we're faced with are, what are the reasonably foreseeable potential adverse environmental consequences? What are the negative things associated with the project? We have to think about this in a nuanced fashion. This is not just a political determination as to whether or not we think it's a good thing overall. CEQA was designed to analyze and mitigate the negative impacts associated with the project, even though there might be positive things associated with the project. And here's the fundamental thing I want you to think about here, is that the residents were told at various workshops, including one in March 2018, that the city would undertake an environmental assessment, that was the word, an environmental assessment and a public review process associated with the project. And so they were shocked, to be quite honest, when the city came around and determined that this was exempt from CEQA. And one of the biggest issues here, and let me just back up for a second, there's value associated with having a public comment process. When you publish that document, when you give legal notice, when you have a public comment period, you can solicit inputs from people that can make you aware of some of the negative things that you may not be aware of sitting at your desk here at City Hall. But people who live closest to the project can provide input, and you can develop mitigation measures. It doesn't mean the project's going to go away, but there's mitigation measures to lessen the potentially significant environmental effects. That did not occur. So those are the facts. The other thing here is that traffic, while it may have slowed down along the boulevard, and definitely we understand the goal, which is to reduce fatalities and also create some of the positive impacts that Councilmember Bonin just talked about, it doesn't just magically go away. So it's dispersed, right? It's dispersed to adjacent residential communities. And we already know this. I guarantee that the council members who are here today have had calls from their residents about the impacts of Waze and Lyft and all these other devices that are diverting traffic into their neighborhoods. I know people who now used to live in secluded residential communities that basically have a freeway going in front of their house between morning hours and evening hours. And this is what's happened here. So what we're asking for is for a pause to do an environmental analysis specifically with the cut-through traffic. And what are the mitigation measures to lessen the impact? We know that restricted turns signs can do some benefit. There could be speed bumps. But we want you to mitigate the negative impacts with this project, as well as just acknowledge the positive impacts. And with that, I will cede the rest of my time to Sherry.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sherry O'Dear, and I'm from WeLand, West Los Angeles Neighborhood Network. I'm in front of the committee to talk about the lack of transparency that has occurred in my area, in Mar Vista. It's impossible to understand how the city can make this project permanent without doing an environmental review to protect the citizens, the people that you guys work for. You know, how can you, Mr. Bonin, and the city go back on a promise you made in March 2018 that you said, quote, if the Great Streets Venice Boulevard is made permanent, there will be an environmental assessment and an accompanying public process. The public has been cut out of this process. You haven't been present for us. We've asked for town halls. We've asked to have conversations, and we haven't had any with you. Please grant the CEQA appeal by WeLand and do not move forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have another 35 seconds. Do you want it?
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay, we will now go to general public comment. Call up 4 folks at a time. Sherry Akers, Holly Tilson, Mia Duncans, and Michelle Krupkin.
I guess I'm first.
Yeah, go ahead. Sherry.
Okay. I'm Sherry Akers. Thank you. As an advocate for older adults who hope to age in place, I want to thank you for the changes on Venice Boulevard, and I implore you to make them permanent. This stretch of Mar Vista has all the essentials for purposeful aging. Slowing traffic was the key to providing a thriving city center that is safe for older adults, and I believe the changes have been a huge success. This parking lane configuration is much safer for exiting a parked car when one has any mobility challenges. As a caregiver for my 91-year-old dad and having osteoarthritis myself, I'm painfully aware of how difficult and painful it can be to exit from the passenger side of a car when parked at a curb. I'm a 20-year resident of Mar Vista, and I'm on this stretch of Venice Boulevard every single day. I look forward to a decision being finalized so that the discord in our community can be put behind us and the Mar Vista Community Council can return to its history of community engagement and support. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go in order I called them, so we'll do Holly, then Mia, then Michelle.
My name is Holly Tilson. I'm a Mar Vista resident and a Mar Vista Community Council board member. Our politicians promised a beautification project on Venice Boulevard if we supported turning over Highway 187 from state to city control. We did, and almost overnight we got a road diet. I would call this a bait and switch tactic. Why, when the words road diet are mentioned, do people still ask, what's that? When elected officials use these snake oil salesman-like tactics, you lose the public's trust. What once was a happy-go-lucky community is now extremely divided. The MVCC has only 6 of the original 13 elected members left, and we've been left to deal with the road diet fallout. In my humble opinion, this behavior and the handling of this project is just shameful. Venice Boulevard was safe before the road diet, and it is questionable whether it is safer now. What is not in dispute are the negative impacts this road diet has had on the relationships of its residents
Thank you,
and
Holly.
on the safety of the surrounding neighborhoods.
Thank you. Mia?
Yes. Hi, my name is Mia Duncans. I was born and raised in Mar Vista, and I'm the third of 5 generations of Mar Vista natives dating back to the early 1900s. I stand here today to say that I strongly support Mike Bonin and Eric Garcetti, and I support the Great Streets project on Venice Boulevard. I, for one, am not anti-car, I'm not anti-bicycle, I'm not even anti-e-scooter. I believe that all wheels are created equal and both deserve a place on our streets. I am proud to share the road with the new wave of bicyclists through my beloved hometown. One thing I have learned from being raised in this fast-paced city of angels is that the only constant is change. The entire West Side is constantly being retrofitted to keep up with the modern advances in technology and with the many new phases of health and well-being in the 21st century. We've seen businesses come and we've seen businesses go throughout Los Angeles. Is it because of a removal of a lane? Or is it perhaps the rent increases and varying demands of customers reinventing their tastes and wants from what was to what is? Being born and raised in the city of fast-paced angels, it taught me one thing. Life is much sweeter if we take the time to smell the roses, slow down, exhale, and enjoy the community around you. I love Mar Vista.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, my name is Michelle Krupkin, and I'm a Mar Vista resident and a member of the Mar Vista Community Council. I, at the request of the council, founded the Great Streets Ad Hoc Subcommittee in 2014 and have held meetings ever since then, monthly meetings, which you can see the agendas and the minutes on the Mar Vista Council. And also, you can see them because that's what Mayor Garcetti produced when he was asked for a California Public Records request and asked for specific data. Mayor Garcetti produced all of the agendas and minutes and correspondence instead of data. So you can see the work I've done on the Great Streets Ad Hoc Committee. We were told by former Transportation Deputy Jesse Holzer from CD11 and former Mar Vista West LA Deputy Len Wynn, who's now a planning deputy, that there would be an opportunity to come together and discuss things the community didn't want and had concerns about. Instead, the CEQA exemption and no EIR. I urge that you grant the CEQA appeal.
Rest in writing if you'd like. All right, we'll call up the next 4 speakers. Margaret Hosier, Karen Kennedy, Damian Newton, and Dawn. Please go ahead, Margaret.
Thank you, Council. I live in West Mar Vista. I appreciate the vision of improving street safety, but to do so at the expense of safety elsewhere is ignorance. Handicapped persons in wheelchairs now have to alight from their vehicles by avoiding bicyclists and with no direct access to sidewalks. They have to roll down the street using the bike lane to the end of the block where the curb cutout is available. And now there's even greater traffic congestion. Cut-through traffic on the residential streets has increased significantly. And I may remind you that residential means single and multi-family homes. Note the word family. Cut-through traffic is dangerous to families. There's no safety in that. And just to let you know that pedestrian-controlled crosswalks are unnecessary. People feel very safe now to run across 2 lanes of traffic as opposed to the original 3 lanes. I strongly disagree with the statement made that there was extensive outreach.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name's Karen Kennedy. I've been living in Los Angeles since 1996, the first 11 years in Mar Vista, and the 12 years since, still close to Venice Boulevard and using it frequently to go back to my favorite businesses. I just wanted to comment that I agree with the conclusions of the report, that this is a project that clearly falls within the exemptions of CEQA. I applaud the Venice Great Streets project. I remember what it was like trying to cross that street when I had 2 little kids in tow. We just tended to avoid the businesses on the other side of Venice. I wanted to address one of the arguments that has been made by the appellants. This group that it was formed for the sole purpose of stopping the road diets has claimed that increased road emission, auto vehicle emissions will result from this road modification because of vehicles idling stuck in traffic. But there's clearly not evidence to support this argument, and I just want to state that the real cause of traffic congestion is the large number of cars.
Thank
we
you.
need to take action.
Thank you very much. Mr. Newton?
I misunderstood and wrote 2 minutes worth of testimony, so I have copies for people.
Okay.
And I'm just going to focus on specifically state law and CEQA in the part that I read out loud. The state of California has been clear that traffic congestion is not an environmental impact, and that instead of worrying about reducing congestion by increasing and maintaining car capacity, we need to focus on reducing car dependency. Indeed, a report from the state's Air Resource Board released at the end of last year shows that California has not and will not reach our goals for clean air and reduce greenhouse gas emissions because of a high rate of car dependency. This understanding of environmental science informs our understanding of CEQA and the states as well. In December of 2018, the California State Office of Planning and Research released a technical advisory on evaluating transportation impacts in CEQA that included a long list of changes that could be made to a roadway that should not require an induced travel analysis. The list includes reduction in number of through lanes, removal or relocation of off-street or on-street parking spaces, addition of new or enhanced bicycle or pedestrian facilities on existing streets, highways, or within the existing public rights of way.
Right on the button. That was well done. I've never been able to do that. Mr. Ward.
Hi, my name is Don Ward. I'm a longtime born and raised resident of Los Angeles and a user of Venice Boulevard and other roadways in Los Angeles using cars as well as bicycles and other forms of transportation like mass transit. And I'm just here to cheer on this project because this project gives us options, and for the last 5 or 6 decades, they've been building Los Angeles into a car dependency, and we can see that that's no longer feasible. People need options. So this project, for me, represents the future of Los Angeles, and we need more of this around the city. So thank you. I applaud you for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Got 5 more speakers. I'll call 3 up and then 2, and just a note, if anybody has stuff that they didn't have time to say when they speak and they'd like to submit something into the record, you can give something in writing to the clerk. So the next 3 speakers are Mary Ruska, Catherine Wheeler, and Anna Martin. Let's start with Mary.
Good afternoon, council members, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I would like, if I may, to speak first on behalf of the Mar Vista Community Council and then as a private citizen, Mary Ruska. Would that be okay?
We'll pause the time for a second. Are you speaking in providing an official community impact statement from the
Yes.
neighborhood council?
Yes.
All right, then why don't you take your personal 1 minute now, and then you get a longer period of time to read a community impact statement, so I want to afford you that opportunity. So start the clock again for the 1 minute.
Okay, great, thank you.
And wait till he's, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is Mary Ruska, private citizen speaking. The Great Streets Road Diet has the veneer of righteousness and nothing else. It has done nothing to improve Venice Boulevard, has quite possibly created new safety hazards there, and has most definitely ignited a feud which has riven our formerly placid and welcoming neighborhood apart. This is the legacy of Great Streets Venice Boulevard. Thank you.
You finished with your personal?
I'm done.
Okay. If the clerk could remind me, under council rules, neighborhood councils are afforded an opportunity to give a longer community impact statement. And I should remember what this is because we just did it for Mr. Mures yesterday in council. Is it 3 minutes or 5 minutes?
Yes, you could give her 3 minutes. It's really at the discretion.
Okay,
Just
all right.
longer than the normal period.
Okay.
It won't take long.
Oh, all right, that's short. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the voice of the Mar Vista Community Council. The Mar Vista Community Council is disappointed and dismayed that Councilman Bonin, in announcing his decision regarding the Great Streets Venice Boulevard project, chose to violate City Charter Section 907 and LA Municipal Code Section 22.810.1, subsection F, subsection A, by announcing on December 20th, 2018, via an email blast and YouTube video that data collection and analysis on the project had been completed and a decision made. Mr. Bonin precluded any opportunity for input or discussion with the Mar Vista Community Council as mandated by these statutes. Accordingly, the Mar Vista Community Council strongly disapproves of Mr. Bonin's conduct with regard to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Herman, I'm giving you your only warning. You've been making noises and hand gestures in an attempt to disrupt the meeting, so this is your only warning. Okay? Thank you. All right, Catherine.
Hi, my name is Catherine Wheeler, and I've been a resident of Mar Vista since 1978. When I first experienced Great Streets, it was like being stuck on the 405 freeway going north when they were doing all the construction. So therefore, I and my neighbors, we avoid it. We go other places, we avoid it. And this is shown by, the city even admits this, because they're spending our tax dollars, time, and energy by increasing stop signs and speed humps in previously quiet streets because people are avoiding the area. My understanding is by public records, Bonin's office received an 89% of 1,700 people who opposed the road diet, and next door had a 71% over 2,200 people who opposed the road diet. Also, from my research, it doesn't look like LAFD was in the loop like the Department of Transportation. So accident injuries are up. The data shows that businesses are not booming, they're dying. 21 mom and pop businesses that I loved for years have left the boulevard. 10 storefronts are still remain empty. And I'd like to submit this, if I could.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you very much.
Before Anna starts speaking, we can also call up Chris Shires and Lindsay Nolan, and I'm going to have them, Catherine and Mary, take those seats. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Chris and Lindsay, come on up. Hi. Hello. Anna, please go ahead.
Hey there. My name is Anna Martin, and I own a bike shop on Venice Boulevard along the Great Streets corridor. And I remember when there were many events that I attended where people in the community were asked what they would like to see and put little stickers on what they liked, what they didn't like. It was implemented in May of 2017. I work at my store 7 days a week, all day, between 8 and 12 hours a day, so I see exactly what goes on. I see people, parents with children, using the bike path, all sorts of people coming to Venice Boulevard, locking up their bikes, going to the different businesses. I have a sign in my window supporting the Great Streets project, and people come in literally every day saying, yeah, we really like this project, but there seems to be all this negativity from these other businesses. People in the community really support this project, especially parents who want to ride their bikes with children.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chris.
Hi, my name is Chris Shires, and my family and myself live in Mar Vista. I have a 6.5-year-old daughter, and we love the project. We walk more. We love the buffer from the street. We actually get to cross the impasse that was Venice Boulevard and visit other businesses and walk on that side of the neighborhood. And we're just out and about more. We love all the art. And I get, we live in Los Angeles, and traffic can be frustrating. And I got interested in congestion and how you actually solve that. And the only thing that's actually really solved congestion is not adding more streets. It's congestion fees. And I know that's not popular with people, and certainly I don't want to pay to be on the roads. But I like my community, and I like the feeling that we have having the bike lane there. So thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Nolan. I'm Policy Director with LA County Bike Coalition. LACBC supports the current configuration on Venice Boulevard and urges this committee to deny the CEQA appeal. LADOT's evaluation of the project found that the Venice Great Street pilot project was successful at increasing multimodal access and activity, reducing severe injuries, and accommodating existing vehicular volumes. The Venice Great Streets project has created a safe and vibrant corridor for all road users, and it should be made permanent. Again, we urge this committee to deny this appeal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for the public testimony, those from all sides who came down here today. Appreciate that folks trekked down and made the public testimony. I'll now ask staff to come up to the table to do their presentation. And if you could each identify yourselves for the record.
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Tom Carranza with LADOT's Transportation Planning Bureau.
Sigmund Chu, Deputy City Attorney, Office of City Attorney.
Great. I guess you have a presentation?
We do. So Great Streets is a placemaking initiative intended to revitalize neighborhood centers through improvements in the public right-of-way. Venice Boulevard in Mar Vista was selected as one of the 15 initial great streets throughout the city of LA. And as you mentioned, Council Member, in Mar Vista, the project was designed to respond to the community's desire for a downtown Mar Vista. Key features included 2 mid-block signalized crosswalks, new left turn signals, leading pedestrian intervals, and a parking protected bike lane. Some of the improvements were installed on a permanent basis, such as the mid-block crosswalks that involved major signal and concrete work. These elements were determined to be categorically exempt from CEQA in a notice of exemption filed in 2016. In December 2018, based on the results of a one-year evaluation, the LADOT General Manager determined that the pilot was successful. So the department then filed another notice of exemption to memorialize the decision to make the pilot elements permanent. The department found that these elements were also categorically exempt from CEQA. And it's this second NOE that is the subject of the appeal today. The department provided an extensive written response to the arguments presented by the appellant. We're happy to answer any questions you may have about the written report. But it's important to note that LADOT continuously monitors and evaluates the performance of our city's transportation system. We do so above and beyond what is statutorily required, and we use a range of metrics to inform how we manage our streets. Our evaluation process includes a host of metrics that provide a bigger picture than what the traditional CEQA process allows. Not every community concern is an environmental issue. Today's hearing is focused on the merits of the CEQA exemption only. The department takes community concerns seriously, which is why we held multiple open houses during the pilot period and conducted an extensive one-year evaluation, and we published both the report and a technical appendix on the project website. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Based on the oral argument you heard from Mr. Hall and the appellants and the public comments we heard, is there anything supplemental to your written response that you would like to add to the record?
No, I just said it's worth noting that there was a justification attached to the NOE assessing the potential for unusual impacts. But beyond that, nothing beyond what's stated in the report.
Okay. Some of the testimony talked about public feedback. As I indicated in the beginning, but if maybe you could elaborate, in a response to public feedback at various points throughout the process, changes were made to the project.
Correct.
Such as we did the green paint, we did the right turn signals, and there was the change, the additional lane at Sentinella, yes? Great, okay.
That's a yes.
Are there any parts of the appeal that you have seen which are incorrect, technically inaccurate, or misleading?
Well, as explained in the staff report, none of the items brought up in the appeal are exceptional circumstances that would require further environmental review under CEQA. Overall, the appellant's claims suggest a misunderstanding of the facts about the project and on the CEQA standards and procedures that the city followed. For example, the appellant claims that the project reduced the carrying capacity of the street, yet the corridor can and does carry about the same number of vehicles per day that it did before the project. The appellants cite a Federal Highway Administration informational guide that actually recommends road diets as a safety measure, but they claim that it instead recommends against road diets. In fact, the informational guide just recommends further study for streets like Venice Boulevard, which the department did during the evaluation of the project. Either way, this has no bearing on the project CEQA exemption. The appellants also claim that the project would somehow impede a tsunami evacuation route, yet the project is more than a mile away from the evacuation zone.
More than a mile. Okay, thank you. All right, and if you identify any additional inaccuracies, I'm sure that'll be part of the written response. A question for you. What would happen if the appellant's CEQA arguments were taken to their logical conclusions about what type of transportation improvements require more extensive CEQA work? Like what kind of projects would be affected by this approach to CEQA exemptions?
Well, from a legal standpoint, CEQA does provide broad exemptions for traffic engineering projects such as this. As identified in the staff report, this was a categorical exemption due to existing facilities, operations of existing facilities, and also minor alterations of land. And CEQA, by law, does provide these categorical exemptions as predetermined to have less than a significant impact. Only a certain limited range of projects are subject to the exceptions, and I think the legislature has determined by the recent amendments in December 2018 that these projects are eligible, and that like a full EIR or any other sort of more intensive CEQA document is not required. And I think for these types of projects, it would obviously make a lot of projects much harder to implement if it were required to go through a more extensive process than required by CEQA. Also, I guess there's an issue regarding the community plans or other plans that are in the works by the city. Under the law, the current plan is, any current plans are still in effect, so current projects are not impacted by any proposed changes until those proposed changes are actually adopted by the City Council or the Planning Commission or whoever the appropriate decision-making body is. Obviously, with all these changes going on with the city and the plans, if they were subject to this type of rule, there are a lot of projects that obviously won't go forward as well.
So clearly we wouldn't want this type of definition of what requires the higher CEQA examination to apply to stuff like the striping of crosswalks or the installing of traffic signals, et cetera.
Right.
Okay. All right, so what I'm gathering from the written response that the city has provided in the testimony we've heard today is that accepting the arguments in this appeal would tie up really much of LADOT's work program in red tape and impact our ability to deliver the traffic safety and efficiency projects, signals, crosswalks, turn lanes, and other Vision Zero elements that our constituents expect from the city. Colleagues, any questions? No? All right, well, we've heard some impassioned arguments both for and against the project today, and as I said, I appreciate everybody coming down. From what we've heard from staff, it appears the appellants did not provide compelling evidence that the department violated CEQA, and on that basis, I'd move that we approve the LA DOT report and deny the appeal. Is there any objection? All right, then that is the direct order of the committee. Thank you very much.
I would suggest perhaps we read the recommendations into the record for clarity.
Certainly.
I can do that. So the LADOT recommendations are to deny the CEQA section 21151 subsection C appeal. Second action is to determine that the Venice Boulevard Great Streets project, finalized project and additional improvements, which we're calling the project, is categorically exempt under CEQA after considering the notice of exemption on file and the response included in the report. Third action is to adopt and concur with the project as approved by the Los Angeles Department of Transportation. And the fourth action is to direct department staff to file a notice of exemption with the Los Angeles City Clerk and the Los Angeles County Clerk.
Thank you. And so those are the four recommendations that were in the DOT report that was part of the council file that was provided. And the recommendation I made was that we approve the DOT report, deny the appeal. Mr. Hsu just detailed what the DOT report says to make it clear for the record. So thank you for that. So without objection, that is the direction of the committee. Thanks, everybody, for your time. All right.
Is there another Great Streets project in challenge? Is it yours?
I don't think so.
Same people? But it's the same network? They just have money to, how do they pay for their legal?
That's my business.
Go you're up.
Half of them are lawyers. All right, let's go to item number 7.
Item number 7 is the DOT report relative to providing safe bicycle connections to the Los Angeles River Path.
Okay, give me just a second. Do we have any staff here on this? Huh?
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Pauline Chan of the Department of Transportation, and I'm here to address the City Council's direction to LADOT to report back on the department's plans to provide safe bike connections to the LA River bike path. I want to begin by saying that the 51-mile-long LA River corridor provides many tremendous opportunities to the cities and communities serving environmental sustainability, open space, and transportation needs. In the early 1990s, LADOT led the first efforts to build the bike path along the LA River with its first 7.4-mile section through the Glendale Narrows, northeast of downtown. Since then, and to this day, we have been partnering with the Bureau of Engineering and Bureau of Street Services to plan, to seek grant funding, design, and build out the bike path from headwaters in the West Valley to Elysian Valley, northwest of downtown. We're also one of many agencies supporting Metro in its efforts to build a gap on the eastern perimeter of downtown. LADOT is a partner in the Mayor's LA River Revitalization Task Force, in which affected agencies will be engaging in a coordinated effort to plan out the future capital improvements and connectivity strategies to build an accessible LA River corridor. We recognize the critical need to provide safe and convenient connections between the river and the neighborhoods, the key destinations, and the existing bicycle network. And thus, this important work is already a component of our strategic plan. Specifically, our role in LADOT will be to focus on identification and implementation of safe street crossings, traffic signals, warning devices, feeder bike lanes, or low-stress neighborhood greenways, and other network infrastructure. Furthermore, LADOT will assist with developing the infrastructure cost estimates and budget needs to build out the connections, identify potential funding sources, including leveraging other programs where possible. We will also support the larger Bureau of Engineering efforts to prioritize and build out the missing gaps in the valley in accordance with their overall schedule for building out the LA River. And I can take questions.
Thank you. Before we take any questions, we have 2 public comment cards. You can stay where you are, Pauline. And if Don Ward and Karen Kennedy could come on up. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment. I'm really glad to hear that the city is working on this. I lived in and biked in LA for several years before ever getting onto the bike path along the river, even though I'd heard of it, because I couldn't figure out a way to get to it. My choices were Los Feliz Boulevard, Glendale Boulevard, and Fletcher. And the point I was trying to make earlier is that the only way we're going to reduce congestion is to make it safe and appealing to use alternatives. And a huge bit of progress can be made by making it easy to get to a nice off-street place to bike. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward.
Yeah, I saw this item on the agenda and wanted to make a comment actually regarding what the lady just here just described, which is we have a large swath of population that is not able to get to the LA River through the valley between Griffith Park and Elysian Park. And there really are only a few major arteries that can get you to the LA River: Los Feliz, Hyperion, Glendale, and Fletcher. And they're all flanked by freeway entrances and a lot of traffic congestion. And I've personally fought to attempt to get a safe connection through the Hyperion Bridge. That attempt didn't succeed. However, I would urge the committee to look at other ways of getting nearly, 250,000 people access to the LA River from the west side of the LA River through that valley. Thank you.
If you've attempted a route and didn't succeed, there's no way that a mom and her kids would, because you're one of the more daring cyclists I know. So, any questions, Mr. Koretz or Ms. Martinez? No. Okay. Let me just thank DOT for the report. You're certainly working within your authority to make new connections in the city's bike network. I appreciate that. The challenges seem to be where you're in a support role to other city departments. That's been an issue for a while. And often it seems LADOT might be consulted late in the project development process, after opportunities to provide better bike connections are already foreclosed. So, we've talked about it in this committee, we've talked about it in Budget Committee, we've talked about it in Public Works Committee. We all need to work better together as a city family to accomplish our transportation and sustainability goals. And that means coordinating across departments to ensure the projects are delivering up to their potential. So, after conferring with Mr. Blumenfield, I'd like to recommend that we do the following. 1, receive and file the LADOT report. 2, instruct the Bureau of Engineering to report back with recommendations to ensure that all major capital projects in the vicinity of the LA River, including bridge projects and new segments to the LA River path, are designed to safely accommodate all legal road users and to provide connections to the city's bicycle network. 3, to instruct Recreation and Parks in consultation with the Department of Transportation to report back with recommendations to provide safe, convenient bicycle connections between the LA River bike path and Griffith Park. And 4, to jointly refer this item to the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee. Without objection, that will be the direction of the committee. Thank you. All right. I skipped over item number 5, so let's do item 5.
Item number 5 is a Rue O'Farrell motion relative to adding the Sherman Oaks Business Improvement District to the Parking Enterprise Fund pilot program.
Good afternoon. So we've been requested to look at Sherman Oaks bid as a potential addition to the SPRF local return pilot program. And we did take a look, and the bid does qualify. It does meet the minimum criteria. And with the 15% set aside allowed for the business improvement district, that would equate to about $53,000, which is just a little bit over the minimum that a bid that qualifies for the program would receive, which is $50,000. So we haven't reached out to the Sherman Oaks bid, so I hope that they are interested. If we did go forward with this, we do have money set aside for the SPRF local return to accommodate the $53,000. We do caution that this is a pilot program and there is many unknowns associated with the program. There is extensive work that goes into administrating the program, especially as we add additional bids. So while this one does have a low threshold, it's a lower amount, just barely above the minimum, we may be able to accommodate this, but I would again caution against adding any additional pilot programs to the pilot because we want to make it successful. And again, there's a whole host of unknowns. And with that, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce the project manager for the SPRF Local Return Program, and that's Josie Valdez. And with that, we'll be happy to take any questions you have.
So go into a little bit more detail about why we need to stop at adding CD4. I mean, let's be honest, the next question is what about CD13 and when? So why can't we do that now?
So there's a couple things that are inhibiting us. One, the amount of money that, for instance, another council district or another business improvement district, one that's in question, would get about $300,000, which is 6 times the amount of this business improvement district, which leads to a whole host of additional projects that could require coordination. So there's the question of the money, and then there's the question of just the amount of administration that goes into managing each pilot area. And with that, I'll hand it over to Josie to just go through a list of things that are associated with the program.
Good afternoon. So with each participating bid, we would have to conduct outreach and meetings throughout the length of the program, customer service and administrative assistance throughout the length of the program, program application assistance and review, contract execution and compliance, expenditure reviews and approval and denial, invoice payments, multiple progress report reviews throughout the length of the program, project coordination if using city services, project oversight if being reimbursed, project site visits before, during, and after completion, annual report review, future expenditure plan review, audits, and an annual performance report for each bid.
So the staffing that we have set aside for the program, for the pilot program, is one person. That's Josie, who already has a full-time job, and so she is going to be taking on the pilot program, so that will be her first priority. And so without additional staff, with so many unknowns, the administrative oversight that's required for each pilot program area, it's very difficult for us to be able to take on any additional beyond potentially Sherman Oaks.
So when this was at council and we submitted this, when this motion got submitted, we also approved an amendment for you to come back with recommendations on how to proceed with adding additional after the pilot. When do we anticipate getting some detail on that?
So I think the soonest that we'd be able to report back would be after 6 months since we dispersed the funds. So we're in the process of actually developing the agreements with the business improvement districts that would need to go to City Council for approval. Once that's in place, we distribute the funds, I'd say about 6 months after that. So all in all, I'd say we're probably about 8 months out before we can actually report back with the progress of the program.
Okay, that's the progress of the program, but
to add an additional one, it depends. Depending on how, if it turns out during the first 6 months, it's actually not as much work as we thought, I think we'd be in a better position to be able to say, you know what, we might be able to handle an additional one. However, if it turns out that it's just a huge administrative burden, then I think we should probably wait till the end of the pilot program, the first full year, before requesting additional staff to continue the program and take on additional bids.
So I want to be able to be helpful to Mr. O'Farrell. So while I certainly don't want to stand in the way of this, and I'm happy to approve it today because I don't want to get in the way of Mr. Rue either, is I would like us to have a status report on this 3 months in. And part of that status report has got to be consideration of adding CD13.
Very well.
And their projects. I think they need to know that they're next in line because they've been very vocal and interested about this for quite some time.
Understood.
Okay. Colleagues? Okay. So without objection, that will be the direction of the committee to approve this with a additional direction that we come back to committee 3 months into the program with the consideration of CD13 and other report back stuff.
Okay.
There's a more precise way of saying that, but you know what I mean.
We got it.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 8.
Item number 8 is a Bureau of Engineering and Street Services and DOT report relative to the project budget for the Reseda Boulevard Street Reconstruction Vision Zero program.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Nader Asmar with the Department of Transportation. I have with me, go ahead.
Gene Edwards with the Bureau of Engineering.
And we're here today to talk about the Reseda Complete Street project. So this Reseda Complete Street project is truly a complete street project in the true sense. The Mobility Plan 2035 serves as the guiding document for the transportation elements of this project. The mobility plan calls out for Reseda Boulevard as a transit-enhanced network street and a bike-enhanced network street. Reseda Boulevard is the busiest north-south transit street in the West San Fernando Valley, and as such, the design that the Vision Zero team proposes to the council office and the community includes inline bus boarding islands, similar to the treatments that you see on Los Angeles Street in front of the Federal Building, to improve the transit times and improve pedestrian safety. The project also proposes a parking protected bike lane. This bike lane closes a gap that exists right now between Van Owen Street and Valerio and provides a continuous north-south bike lane on Reseda from Tarzana to the 118 freeway. Another major element of the project is the installation of left turn signal phasing at 8 of the existing traffic signals. This will provide significant safety benefits where there have been history of collisions in the past. On this project, we worked very closely with Council District 3 on the development of the project, hosted a very successful open house, and conducted extensive community outreach. We surveyed every business on the corridor and generally received very positive feedback for the project. That's the sort of the transportation elements of the project. I want to turn it over to Gene to discuss some of the other elements of the project.
Right. So as stated, this is a joint report with BOE, LADOT, and Street Services. Actually, it's a report back. We were instructed in March that if we were to exceed the limit budget for this project, that we would report back to council. And so in our report, we present 2 alternatives. The first alternative is the full scope as recommended in the report, and that includes all reconstruction elements, Vision Zero elements, green infrastructure, and enhancements. The second alternative is the full scope without the enhancements that do not relate directly to reconstruction or mobility safety, such as bus shelters, associated security lighting with the bus shelters, the filling of 112 empty tree wells, and the addition of 47 new trees. Also, aesthetic treatments. And aesthetic treatments is budgeted. Those items could include treatments such as color and texture to pavement, the public furniture, and signage. So with that, we welcome any questions you may have.
Great. Colleagues, any questions? Okay, let me just thank you for this. Thank Mr. Blumenfield for his leadership on this. This sounds like a really phenomenal project. Eyes wide open in CD3. But this really is a very impressive project. The three of us stood with the mayor a couple weeks ago to talk about not repowering gas plants here in Los Angeles because of climate change. This is also part of our battle against climate change. The mayor also announced we're recycling our wastewater 100%. This is also about better use of our water. This is really exactly the kind of stuff we should be doing. So kudos to CD3 on this. So recommendation would be to approve the joint report, to direct BOE to change the program name to the Complete Streets Program.
Was that one of the recommendations? Oh, you added it. Oh, you're adding it. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Approve the joint report, direct BOE to change the program name to the Complete Streets Program, direct BOE to report back with recommendations on a standardized project development process, including Complete Streets checklist and community outreach guidelines, and direct the CAO to report back with potential supplementing funding sources for future projects to support the program's mobility and sustainability benefits. Sound good?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So without objection, that is the direction of the committee. And unless there's an objection, we will adjourn. We are adjourned.
Thank you.